The Lawfare lunatic is losing his mind. Oh, it looks like it's movie night again. It's funny, the last time I was here in Bryant Park was also movie night. It was, remember? Pulp Fiction. Wow, a lot of people. What's the movie tonight? Movie nights. But yeah, the Lawfare lunatic, he's losing his mind. I got 7 emails from George's mentally ill brother today. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. I mean, these emails are directed toward Nina Jankowicz's attorney and Ben Wittey's. Does he think I'm shying away from those people? I mean, I've entered these documents in court because I'm trying to engage them in legal matters. Well, not because I'm trying to engage them, I'm trying to engage the court. I am trying to engage them. I've sought leave of the court to bring them back into new legal actions. Oh, Prague, thank you on the amazing thumbnail. Well, let's talk about that for a second. That thumbnail, I've got some new capabilities in AI. I'm constantly exploring AI. Many people who have been watching for a while, I meant to bring the original cartoon image. People who have been watching the show and following me on X at JG_CSTT might have seen this cartoon depiction of the Lawfare lunatic, you know, living out his pathetic, awful life in his RV, you know, smelling his own farts and whiling away his time making legal filings against me. He's literally a lunatic. He's a mad person. But yeah, this is cartoon to photoreal. I mean, I guess that capability has been around for a while. I've been exploring it. And yeah, that's what we've got there, is a satirical depiction of the Lawfare lunatic. And then, of course, people who are on X, even just following for free, look at all these people who've come out for movie night. It's cool, right? I don't know what the movie is tonight. There's going to be a sign around that'll tell us. But, you know, you can get your picnic basket and whatever. Do people have the kids? I hope it's not Pulp Fiction. There was a sign somewhere telling us what the movies are. But yeah, even if you're following for free, you would see that I created my own little AI movie last night. Let's have a look.
Dear Sir, please consider this your Rule 11 21-day safe harbor notice and your notification of intent to sue. And furthermore, hey, do you hear something? Oh.
So the Lawfare lunatic always meets his demise in these comedic, satirical depictions. First Amendment protected activity. Funny, I think. But anyway, that's him. He's there making these filings. He thinks he's going to get a Rule 11 sanction against me for filing this Rule 60B4 motion. I don't want to go into a lot of details about the motion. People who are interested can go back just a few days. If you're sponsoring the show on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, or if you are subscribed on X, you can see the Counter Lawfare report, the most recent episode. I went through every single line in that 60B4 motion. I think it's my best legal filing that I've ever done in terms of I spent a lot of time researching it and finding case law and everything. In a nutshell, I'm basically saying that in February 2024, when the court dismissed Goodman v. Boozy in favor of the Boozy defendants, there was a defective final judgment. And Rule 60b-4 allows such a void judgment to be attacked at any time. Now, it's Mr. Shithead's position that this is in violation of the court's injunction against me. Remember, that's the case where they enjoined me from ever suing these people again. Ben Wittes, the director of the Lawfare Institute, Nina Jankowicz, the former director of the Department of Homeland Security Disinformation Governance Board, a person who of the Department of Homeland Security Disinformation pointed out had been receiving funds from foreign nonprofits, I think while she was working for the US government. And when I simply raised the question, shouldn't this person be registered under FARA? Seems like a violation of the law. She's now admitted under oath in court that she was advised by her attorneys that she should register under FARA. So that doesn't seem to indicate that I was wrong. Somebody could say, oh, shouldn't Jason be registered under FARA? I wouldn't go do that. And if I asked an attorney, they would tell me, are you paid by a foreign government? And I'd say no. And so then there's no need for me to do that. Obviously, attorneys representing Ms. Jankowicz, that janky bitch, they told her, oh yeah, you got some legal exposure here, and now that this guy is talking about it, yeah, why don't you go register, so if there's any question, we can go into court and give a whole song and dance about how, oh, hey, I didn't know. Registered as soon as it came up. There's the Chrysler Building, one of the all-time greats. So that's interesting, and I mean, the reason I'm talking about all this, I want to get to Zelensky and Trump. It's an interesting meeting today with these European dopes. Nina's part of that mix, right? I didn't like that meeting today. It was nice that Zelensky wore a suit, you know. It's, if I'm going to be critical of Trump, which I think we should, you know, don't just fawn over anything and everything that he does. Nobody should have that. I've told people the story about how I asked Dennis Murin how he could allow George Lucas to make Attack of the Clones with a 2/3 inch sensor and a 4:1:1, no, excuse me, it's a 4:2:0 color space. And he told me if I didn't do it, somebody else will. Meaning there's yes men all around George Lucas who would have made a bigger mess out of it. Dennis Murin wanted to make sure that given those challenging parameters, the most skilled people could make sure it was, you know, minimize the disaster. But the point is, very few people would say, George Lucas, that's a terrible idea, don't do that, because he's basically guaranteed to shoo you away and find more yes men. I'm concerned that there's too many yes men around Trump, and that's what we were seeing today. But back to Nina for a second. She's an idiot. She's part of this whole European coalition of theater kids, all these jackasses that were there. Like, if I were Trump, and people say, oh, Jason, you think you're smarter than Trump? No. But this show is about my opinions, and if you don't like them, no one's forcing you to watch. I would have just said, listen, we don't need you European dopes. We don't care what you think. If you guys want to give Ukraine money and fight Russia, go ahead and do that. We're not doing it anymore. And frankly, Trump danced around this in his very Trumpian kind of way. He said, like, oh, so Zelensky, you're at war, there's no election, so does that mean if 3.5 years from now we're in a war, I can cancel the election? And of course, every idiot in the news jumped all over Trump, saying like, oh, he's trying to be a dictator, cancel the election. But in the same breath, they're going to tell you about how Zelensky is such a fantastically great guy, and Ukraine is a democracy that we should protect and defend. It's just pure stupidity. Ah, here's a C8. Not a Z06. But the point is, Nina is in that whole stupid crew. Taking money from Europe, helping to advance. You know, they all think, oh, we're all in this together. We're globalists. It's our world. We get to come here to New York City from whatever country and yell at Jason when he tells people to get their damn bicycles off the street, like they have some say. You know, this wasn't on camera, but some idiot with like a British or in a Scottish accent or something. He's like, hey, don't yell at me. I was like, fuck you. Do not come here and tell me what to do in New York City. Get the damn bicycle off the sidewalk. So likewise, I don't know why Trump allowed all those European idiots to come to the White House today. It was nice to see Zelensky put on the suit, and he's bending the knee, which he should. He's nothing without us. He's like, oh, Ukraine is a sovereign nation. Fine, go fight Russia by yourself. This war would have ended the first week. The problem is, all those European douchebags, they kept repeating what's really on their mind. They were like, we're going to have security guarantees. And Zelensky said it a million times too, security guarantees for Ukraine. To me, that sounds exactly like what Putin is saying. No, he would never allow that. That sounds like NATO stuff. Article 5, they even said, Article 5 style security guarantees. That means if there's any kind of war in Ukraine, all of these other NATO countries treat it like a war in their own country, and that's going to lead to a war with Russia. Thank you, Laura. Saying amazing. I presume you mean the little animated. It really is amazing. Not to toot my own horn, but I mean, when I consider the type of work that I was doing at 21st Century 3D just 10 years ago, something like that would have taken every animator working for me. We wouldn't have even had the capability to do it. We couldn't do people and hair and lip sync and stuff like that. It would have taken weeks. I did that last night. But yeah, so in the animation there, the Lawfare Lunatic is losing his mind because he's trying to write these Rule 11 sanctions motions against me. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, a lot of people might say, oh, why are you always talking about George and his brother? It's because I think they work for these idiots, the same coalition of idiots who are essentially meeting with Trump today. Globalist morons who want to supersede the Constitution and stuff that protects our rights. The other thing that really disappointed me about Trump even, I mean, we know Trump's style. It's always any meeting, no matter what it's about, he's got to give you a couple of doses of, we know this is Biden's war, not my war. This would have never happened if I had been president, never would have started. And it's like, okay, Trump, we've heard that a billion times. We know that already. We kind of really don't need to hear that anymore. What's the new plan here? I mean, it was impressive that you got Putin to come to the United States. That was a diplomatic win. Less impressive to get Zelensky here. He just wants money. I will agree it was a diplomatic win that he's wearing a suit. It shows that he's cooperating at least at this stage and that he's at least open to not being the same kind of jackass he was the last time he was here. But then Trump did something that I did not like at all. It's a little bit of this kind of like dickhead negotiating where he said like, yeah, Putin said he's open to security, or maybe he said, I think. So it's, he's saying, I think Putin would be open to these kind of security guarantees. And that's like asshole negotiating, where somebody just sort of like tells you, oh yeah, you already agreed to this, right? And if you sit there like a sap and say, I guess, yeah, boom, they just won. But I don't think that's going to work on Putin. And the thing that's interesting is I was like, wait a minute, this sounds exactly like what Putin said he would not tolerate. And sure enough, I went to look it up on RT, and they're saying, they have the quote here, Putin has agreed to security guarantees for Ukraine, according to Trump. And he says how Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready to accept security guarantees for Ukraine, U.S. President Donald Trump said, with all these European bozos. But when you go down to the bottom, it says the Kremlin has not commented on these latest remarks, but it's previously said that Russia would not tolerate Western troops on Ukrainian soil, and Putin has maintained that Ukraine's aspirations to join NATO are one of the root causes for the conflict. So, I mean, that's what I'm getting at, is that this seemed a little bit like maybe one step forward, two steps back. I don't think Putin is going to tolerate this concept of security guarantees, particularly since every European jerk there said a million times, Article 5 style, they're basically just trying to ramrod Ukraine into NATO. And it's not going to work. From a negotiating standpoint, they're not going to take that. Now, I wanted to come over here back to the Roosevelt Hotel, because this is also relevant in our conversation about the Lawfare Lunatic. I just can't get past this coincidence of how the FBI interviewed Charles at this hotel over these emails allegedly, you know, between him and Roger Stone and Corsi. So this is all locked up here. And I was just down at the Stewart Hotel on my walk up here, and it's, you know, it's no longer processing migrants in the way that this thing once was, and that once was. We also, remember, used to get pretty consistent radio interference over here. So I've shored up the failover system. It's been working real well lately, but we should still see some disruption if it exists here. I have a feeling it doesn't, because this was some kind of army office here that was probably using some temporary, you know, radio, wireless, internet stuff. Still see some disruption if it exists here. I have a feeling it doesn't, because this was some kind of army. Any incidents that there, you know, all this is coming. I've heard thing today that said, oh, Kash Patel is urging Congress to release more evidence. Why does he need Congress to do that? Doesn't he have the evidence? Just release it. Or give it to Trump and tell Trump to release it if it's classified. Can't the president declassify anything? And doesn't he think Kash Patel is a genius who, with his magical Devin Nunes memo, did everything? Yeah, so it doesn't seem like we have our old school sketchball crew hanging out over here. They're gone. There were a couple people down at the Stewart Hotel. I don't know, they looked like they were waiting for transport, not the same kind of level of
I thought it was like
high concentration of migrant weirdos that were usually over there. And we don't have our bicycle gang here anymore. So it's definitely a step in the positive direction. It's interesting to see. But why did the FBI interview Charles? Of all the hotels, think about it. All the hotels in New York City, all the coffee shops or restaurants they could have gone to, why this one? What's this dude looking at? He was looking at me a second ago. It's weird to me. And so the reason I'm back on this interview with Charles over these emails to Corsi and Roger Stone is because, remember, this is my hypothesis here, is that this is a crew of morons who are into setting things up, you know? Remember how George used to always say, oh, why doesn't Jason interview Robin Gritz or whatever? And he would lay out these little pieces that he wanted me, and then Robin Gritz would say something during that interview that would invariably lead me to talking about or investigating whatever else. And they were able to really kind of manipulate and, yeah, I know, owned by Pakistan, but I mean, what does that mean? Is it a Pakistani cutout for the FBI? And why is the FBI going there? Why interview there if it's owned by Pakistan? I mean, that is a data point, and I'm not disputing it. I'm just saying there's something else, right? Because they were trying to set up Charles, right? We now know December 8th from Tulsi Gabbard, right? Was it that or this timeline that just got released on Friday? Obama says oh, I don't like this intelligence assessment that says Russia didn't do anything. And again, it ties to this meeting at the White House today, because it's all these European assholes still trying to shtup NATO into Ukraine, which Russia's going to hate. I don't see what has changed that's going to make Russia say, yeah, okay, you can put all these military forces right on our border. They're saying that is top 3 of what we don't want. I just don't see that they're going to do it. And also, that asshole negotiating technique is something that George used to employ. Remember, people who've been watching since the beginning might recall that at first I was enthralled with this notion of, we're going to have these confidential crowdsource sources, informants, people who are going to tell us stuff. And that was stupid. I was naive at the time, but what it did is it encouraged people who hid their identity, Queen Tut and whatnot, to come forward and give some name. And what would happen is I would give them a name, like in the case of Okie Marshall Richards, who was initially presented to me as Richard Stone. I said, well, let's call him Mr. Hudson, like instead of Stone, Rock, and like Rock Hudson, we'll call him Mr. Hudson. And George immediately named him Deep Uranium. And why? Why confuse who this is? I don't know why. Could have been any reason, but he wouldn't say, hey, you know what, instead of that, why don't we refer to the guy as this? He would just start doing it. Like perhaps instead of saying, hey, Putin, has something changed or could something change that would make you amenable to having European or American troops right next to your country, even though you've been saying forever you don't want that? Is there something we could do that would make you say, okay, instead of asking him, they just start saying, oh yeah, he's amenable to that. And he's over there like, wait a minute, what the hell are you talking about? I never said that. I have a feeling that's going to come up. We'll see. And the other weird thing that came up in that meeting, maybe I've heard hints of this, but I just don't know if it's true, that they said, oh, it's very important that we need to get back to 20,000 kidnapped children. So now they're trying to make it kind of like a Hamas hostage situation. Does anyone have any facts on that? Has Russia kidnapped 20,000 Ukrainian children? I feel like that's probably a bit of word massaging that might have to do with the whole, making these regions that were part of Ukraine into part of Russia, and then maybe mischaracterizing some factual element of that so that they can present it to the public as Putin is this horrible dictator who's kidnapping people. I just don't know if any of that is true. And I haven't seen the evidence. I wonder what Russia says about that. I don't know. I think it was a mistake to have this big meeting with all those Europeans there. I think it should have been, we had Trump and Putin. This should have been Trump and Zelensky, and leave it at that. And then if you want to have a meeting with all the European dunces, have Putin there too. So that when they say, oh yeah, Article 5 style security guarantees, he could be like, wait a minute, we never said that was okay. Because now what they've done is they make it look like, oh yeah, everybody agrees to this except for you. And they're going to try to strong arm him. And I hope I'm wrong, because it looks to me like that was badly negotiated and not going to work. And then they're going to be able to say, oh, see, he's the only one, Putin's the only one who doesn't want to agree to this. He's being difficult. And they're going to try to strong arm him. And I just don't think he's the kind of guy who responds to those sort of strong arm tactics. Like, when George used to call this guy Deep Uranium, I would get annoyed with him and be like, look, why do you keep changing the names of these people? It's confusing, it's annoying, nobody knows who you're talking about. But then I realized that was his whole purpose, to confuse and annoy people, or either that or to see if I was susceptible to suggestion, to test how much of a pushover your opponent is. And I just suspect in this case the answer is not much. And you try to push him over and he's not going to push. I suspect. We'll see. So again, Nina is part of that. Ben Wittes is part of that. Ben Wittes' wife is some deputy chief of staff to some former ambassador. They are all on the let's destroy Russia, and the war in Ukraine was a major, move in trying to do that. So what I saw today didn't look to me like a step toward peace. It looked like a desperate last gasp of the NATO people to keep the war going. And they're like, oh, we're all here because this has to do with safety and security in Europe. No, it doesn't. Putin's not trying to do anything to France other than get into the G20. He's been consistent for the entire 20 years that he's been there. He just wants fair and free trade. People say, no, he's killing his enemies. It's just all these lies about him. I don't know. It seemed like a big mistake to me. What do people think in the comments here? It's a nice time of night also to be out. I mean, it gave me an opportunity to kind of wait and see what everybody was saying with all these meetings in Washington, D.C. Laura says that's exactly what she thought. So see, that's the thing. You mean exactly what you thought about the hotel being owned by Pakistan, or exactly what you thought about what I'm saying about Trump's meeting with Zelensky? But it's a nice time of night to be out because we'll be able to kind of see the sunset and everything. See, there's UBS. Isn't that kind of a globalist bank piece of crap? Cops driving the wrong way, texting. We never really found out what happened at that 345 park, did we? I saw Cullen was still on that a little bit, but they're just not really releasing any information about it, not telling us what's happening, and I don't think they will. All these ulterior motives. So the thing that's also interesting about the Lawfare lunatic losing his mind, he sent me 7 emails today. First, they were directed at Nina Jankowicz's attorney. She's got 2 sets of attorneys. She's got this attorney who's behind the restraining order in Arlington Circuit Court. That's, Commonwealth Court, state court basically in Virginia. That's one lawyer, Veronica Holmes, the beached whale, with her ship vessel tattoo, looking like she's going on a Carnival cruise in court, totally inappropriate, and lying like a horrible person, like the horrible person she is, fat, disgusting liar. So George's brother has been emailing her a lot. I don't care, email her. I'm happy to talk to her about what a fat, disgusting bitch she is and what a horrible liar she is. In fact, I look forward to that. But she's not involved in Goodman v. Boozy, except for the fact that George's brother was sharing evidence with her to gin up this fraudulently obtained restraining order. I allege all these allegations have gone into Arlington Circuit Court. So this is nothing new that I'm telling anybody. I allege that George's brother inappropriately conspired with Nina and her attorneys to misrepresent evidence. Inappropriately conspired with Nina and her attorneys to misrepresent evidence. Order that was then District of New York as Lawfare lunatic loser who has been on me for 8 years like an obsessed psychopath, like the obsessed psychopath that he is. That guy is ginning up evidence to help people get fraudulently obtained restraining orders and make misrepresentations that I now allege are fraud upon the court in the Southern District of New York. So he's upset. He's introduced a previous judgment, not the final judgment in this case, a judgment that was superseded by this one with the error in the caption that violates Rule 58 and my due process rights. So he's trying to now basically be the attorney for all these people, saying that if I don't withdraw what I've entered, remember he sent this ridiculous Monty Python style warning where he's saying I have 20 days or before life becomes unpleasant for me. Ooh, very threatening from such a stupid bully. So he's saying that if I don't withdraw the 60B motion, my motion for relief from judgment, he's going to file a motion for sanctions against me. Well, I don't care. Go ahead and file it. It's not getting withdrawn. Nothing's getting withdrawn. And stop emailing me, you retard. It's, file what you need to file and stop telling me about it. I don't care. You know, he thinks he's threatening or something like that, but he's really just a moron. And see, remember, this is the same guy who, at the outset of all this, he sent this tweet to alert Benjamin Wittes and Nina Jankowicz that Chris Boozy was about to default in the case. Why does he care? Why does he care so much, you know? Remember, in April of this year, he went virtually silent, almost completely stopped doing all of this stuff. It's pretty interesting. I can't say that I know why, but it is very interesting to observe that then in May, Nina tried to launch her fraudulent renewal of the restraining order, which failed. Counter lawfare prevailed. They tried to lawfare me, and I prevailed. If they were honest, they could have emailed me and said, hey, it's May 14th, and we've just filed this motion with the court. We're seeking a hearing in 2 weeks. I would have made arrangements to be there. But I think they knew that, so they tried to file it in a secretive way because they knew that that's a particular type of action in Virginia that really is unconstitutional. You know, if you're a lawyer and a lawfare expert who spends sort of all your time trying to figure out how to screw people over with the law, you might know that Virginia has a particular statute that you can take advantage of. We can have these kind of ex parte hearings and really screw people. It's a lawfare trap. So they had hoped to have this ex parte hearing. I shattered that hope. And this is important, I think, because remember, from their ill-gotten injunction in Goodman v. Boozy, they figured, oh, Jason can't bring any legal action forever. Now we got Nina having essentially a gag order. According to them, I couldn't even mention her. Even if she was in Congress testifying, according to them, it was a violation of the restraining order for me to even say Nina Jankowicz was in Congress testifying today, even though she's a public figure and what she's doing there is of public interest. That was their plan, and it makes me think they have some scheme brewing, because they know the whole reason this all came about is because I was creating a problem for Ben Wittes. And not that Ben Wittes is so important, but he is kind of at the heart of this Russiagate thing. Because remember, December 8th, Obama says, oh, I don't like this intelligence assessment that says, that guy had an orange beard. Did people see that? He didn't like this intelligence assessment that says Russia did nothing. Go get an intelligence assessment that says Russia hacked. And so December 9th, remember, so Adam Sharp, professional douchebag and CEO of the Emmys, which conveniently sued me, he leaves Twitter. Look at the date here of this tweet. Okay, personal news. After an incredible journey, December 9th, one day after Barack Obama decides he doesn't like the intelligence assessment, and after 5 years and more than a dozen elections at Twitter, this dunce decides, you know, it's time to leave. I just find that super coincidental, almost as coincidental as the FBI interviewing Charles at that same hotel. Oh, so I guess we have Interstellar tonight. That is a boring ass movie. Oh, they've extended it 1 week. Maybe there was rain or something. All right, so you have Interstellar tonight. Yeah, that's all right movie for kids. Better than Pulp Fiction, I think. It's boring, though. That's the movie where, what's his name? That Texas guy, Matthew McConaughey, goes into space and then somehow meets his daughter in the closet. That's such a bizarre, boring movie. Right? Isn't that one? Yeah, and he somehow knows how to fly this spaceship. He gets to NASA and they're like, oh, hey, you could fly it. That's so stupid. So Barack Obama decides he doesn't like the intelligence assessment. The next day, Adam Sharp, after 5 years and more than a dozen elections, after interfering with more than a dozen elections, he's leaving Twitter, where he was in 2010 when Valerie Caproni was the FBI general counsel, and I allege the FBI got illegally installed into Twitter. When I went to Twitter to tell Elon Musk about that, George's brother was emailing Jim Baker. Fuck you. Sticking your fingers in my face. George's brother was emailing Jim Baker, who also was the FBI general counsel, but by the time George's brother was emailing him, he was the general counsel, deputy general counsel of Twitter. So, I mean, are all these things coincidences? Charles getting interviewed at that hotel, that's the same place that the army is doing weird stuff with migrants. And I don't know, I mean, yes, okay, Pakistan owns it, but what does that mean? Imran Awan was doing something with Pakistan. What's the connection between the FBI and Pakistan? I don't really know. So what I'm getting at is I've known about this whole Peter Smith 33,000 fake emails that they were trying to give to Charles, Peter Smith suicide that we originally thought was so suspicious that it had to be a Clinton body count type of thing, but I now believe he did commit suicide. We've spoken about that a lot. Lots of evidence with the suicide happening in that hotel in Rochester, Minnesota, where I went there. Police photos show 2 tanks of helium in the room. Walmart security footage shows Peter Smith purchasing only 1 tank of helium, and a Walmart employee told us that the inventory system showed that only 1 tank of helium was in stock that day. So lots of questions about that. But the point is, I was talking about it since June 2017. And at first, I thought Benjamin Wittes and Shane Harris were just journalists. And I was contacting them basically saying, hey, you know, you guys have missed some details. Visually stunning, but boring, Riddick, I agree. I got distracted there. Was talking about the Peter Smith fake emails. We're talking about that since June of 2017. And I originally thought that Ben Wittes and Shane Harris were legitimate journalists who maybe were just missing a few details, and I was like trying to help them, you know? I was like, hey, you guys, I've been to the hotel, and you know, here's how the door could have been locked from the exterior, and here's surveillance video of the guy buying helium, and here's all these weird questions, you know. And at first I was like, well, why aren't these guys answering? Maybe they're busy, maybe it's a competition thing, you know, maybe they don't respect me as a journalist, they think they're too fancy to talk to me or something like that. But eventually I started to become suspicious. Like, why are they avoiding this? Same way I feel about Matt Taibbi and Mike Benz. Why? It's not like everybody is talking about this, particularly in the case of Peter Smith. And the level of detail that I have about the same kind of things that they're talking about, why would you not be interested? Like when I said to Mike Benz outside Madison Square Garden, yeah, I came here to tell Elon Musk about the FBI taking over Twitter 5 weeks before they said anything about it, and I was choked. And he said, oh, by Jim Baker? And I said, yeah, you know, that I said, George's brother was emailing Jim Baker. He said, Jim Baker from the FBI? Yes. In the first 30 seconds, how does he not become intrigued by what I'm saying? Now, wait a minute, am I on? I should have gone to, I missed it. I should have gone to 36th and check out the Walcott Hotel, but I don't think anything is really going on at these hotels anymore. It just doesn't make sense to me that Mike Benz wouldn't say something like, forget about Mike Benz, any legitimate journalist wouldn't say something like, well, look, I'm here to meet Elon Musk, who's much more important than you, but I'm interested in hearing about this. Why don't you send me a DM on Twitter? Instead, what he did is he blocked me on Twitter. Didn't say, yeah, I want to hear more about that whole encounter with you getting choked trying to tell Elon Musk and people emailing Jim Baker. Didn't say that. They're avoiding this information. Just like Shane Harris and Ben Wittes avoided any information whatsoever about Peter Smith. But it's strange because something changed. Eventually, Ben Wittes did engage with me on this information about Peter Smith, December 19th, 2020. And I mentioned this yesterday, but it's so important that it's worth saying again. Something important had changed. Joe Biden had taken over. They knew they were going to install the Disinformation Governance Board, right? That didn't happen until 2022. Didn't happen right away, but yet somehow, or right, when did they start that Disinformation Governance Board? 21, 22? The point is, it's almost like it seems George's brother knew that was coming. And I think he did. Because remember, he spent years talking about critical infrastructure. And this is another tricky thing about Mike Benz. He says, oh, I'm the only one who talks about critical infrastructure and how CISA was doing stuff with critical infrastructure. Well, that's not true. David Hawkins used to talk about that and talk about how they were trying to make cognitive infrastructure, say that information and everybody's beliefs and everything are part of critical infrastructure because we need a legal basis to police this and to get around the Constitution, sort of like this same type of approach to asshole negotiation, where you just start saying, oh yeah, Putin is open to Article 5 style security guarantees. And you just, even though they're not in NATO, you just start treating them like they're in NATO, and you make some other non-NATO treaty that gives them all the same privileges of being in NATO, but you can say they're not in NATO. It's like saying we have a constitution, but you're just not allowed to say things that we don't like. Not allowed to talk about Nina, not allowed to talk about COVID, not allowed to talk about anything that we don't like, not allowed to access the courts. They're allowed to sue you 5,000 times. Some sketchy people right there. Not allowed to sue them at all. You know, that's their asshole style of negotiation. They love that. So now, and yeah, it was 2024 that they got that ruling against me. So think about it. They know that they're going to be in control of all the DOJ and everything. And they get that ruling against me. And they figure I can't sue them. I can't talk about Nina. Basically knock me out of commission. They don't want me talking about this email that Ben Wittes sent to James Comey, particularly not now. That's sent the same exact day Adam Sharp puts out his press release about how he's leaving his beloved Twitter. But this thing is all talking about this demonstrative pedagogical summary, that whole letter, or whatever it is, that document that Matt Tate wrote that mentions Charles, that gives the FBI the predicate to start investigating Charles at that Pakistani hotel. It all ties together. And I've been talking about this since 2017. Nobody else really has. And when I try to get Mike Benz, see, there's Jim Baker. He receives the email. He is kicked out of the FBI. in that Durham investigation, you know, the criminal prosecution of Michael Sussman, United States versus Sussman, that's what gets Jim Baker kicked out of the FBI. And in that case, Chris Boozy's lawyer is in that case, well before he represents Boozy. How is that a coincidence? That tweet that George's brother sent to Ben Wittes and Nina Jankowicz prompts Ballard Spahr to come into the case. That Lawfare Lunatic tweet, that's from November 2022. November 22nd, coincidentally, fateful day. So he sends that, he's like, hey Ben Wittes, look at what's going on. Your internet attack dog, Chris Boozy, he's about to get defaulted out of this case. And then I don't know what'll happen. Why are they? But you can see how exercised George's brother is over any of my legal activity around these people. So again, anybody who's like, oh, why are you talking about George and his brother? This is a Twitter beef or a YouTube beef or whatever. No, it isn't. This goes to the heart of Russiagate and all the scumbags who set it up. James Comey, Ben Wittes, Adam Sharp. You know, this had to be a big team. Execute their strategy in the media, social media, all that stuff. And they know that I know. So whatever it is that they're planning now, I think they wanted me to not be able to talk about it. They certainly want me to not tell people to sponsor the show on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Remember, this is the same crew that destroyed my 120,000 subscriber YouTube channel. That was 2020 that it was 120,000 subscribers. Could be 500,000 or 1 million right now. You know, Tim Pool had like 300 and something thousand when I had 120,000. Come 2024, he was interviewing the President of the United States. I don't know what Laura Loomer's social media profile following was like back in 2020, but she's another example of someone who came up through social media and has the ear of the President of the United States, the Secretary of State. This is obviously what they're trying to control and contain. They don't want people to gain influence. Well, I don't know about people, but they certainly don't want me to gain the influence that spreading this information around should rightly have. Now, what's going on here? We've got the WHO. Oh, it just went away. It said something about the WHO. They are the kings of, you know, WHO's last reunion. Now it's just keeping the same low price. Madison Square Garden, I guess that's where the WHO will be.
Hello.
Sorry, man, I can't help you. Don't really advise interacting with homeless people. And I don't have any change. Guy said hello. I was going to give him an opportunity to speak, but that's a sad thing. I mean, it takes us to the next part of the conversation, which is Trump bringing in the National Guard to D.C. to deal with homeless people and crime. I mean, listen, why weren't we putting people like that guy into a hotel? I mean, I'm not saying we should pay for every single person in a hotel, but there's certainly somewhere in the United States of America where real estate and land are economical enough that you could relocate people who don't have money and homes and food and give it to them to get them off of the street, out of danger, reduce the danger to other people, and solve a problem. They don't want to solve it. They just want to keep people in squalor, give money to criminals, traffic children out of the Walcott Hotel or whatever the hell was going on over there, and have these problems just carry on indefinitely. That's what it seems like to me. What did Laura Loomer do to get back in good graces? Well, you know, Elon Musk took over Twitter, and she got back on Twitter and grew from that. That's literally all I know. Maybe something else. I don't know. People would have to talk to Laura about that. But I don't think that Elon Musk took over Twitter because he's a champion of free speech. I think he has some ulterior motive. He's never explained how Al-Walid bin Talal got off the poison pill and onto Elon Musk is now our friend. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I don't understand why I'm receiving so much concentrated attention from these lawfare criminals and all these other people aren't experienced. I mean, Laura has had a lot of lawfare, actually. CARE sued the crap out of her. She's suing Bill Maher now with Larry. I don't really know what's going on with that. I haven't spoken to Larry in several weeks. There was this issue where Bill Maher's lawyers didn't want the deposition to be public, and I know that Larry and Laura wanted it to be, and it looks like it did get released, so I don't know, they succeeded somehow with that. Matt Morse just did 6.5 hours. I don't have time to watch 6.5 hours, but what did he say about that, Corky? Yeah, I mean, they didn't like what I was doing. Ben Whitty should find a training bra. Yeah, he's got his come put on the makeup with me videos. Guy's a nut. But I don't know, what did that guy say about the White House peace effort? It just seemed like a NATO meeting to me. And if I was Putin, I would say, nah, man, that's not what we were talking about. You know? And Zelensky, they just kept, he's a terrible poker player. And most of the Europeans are too. They just kept hammering on these security guarantees. And I was thinking, I don't know, that sounds exactly like what Russia said they will not tolerate, Western armies in Ukraine. And this notion that we need a strong Ukraine, I disagree. I think what we need is a peaceful relationship with Russia. And maybe a mutually beneficial, see, like you look at George's idiot brother, I don't want any interaction with him, but if we had a peaceful relationship, in other words, if he was leaving me alone, he could use all of his energy to go do something else. And who knows, maybe that would even be helpful and productive for mankind versus what he's doing right now, which just seems like a big counterproductive waste of time, where he's, you know, if I was still making the money I was making before he started destroying all of my social media channels, I'd be paying more taxes. That would help everybody. He could go do whatever he's good at, smell his own farts, send a lot of, I don't know, phishing emails or whatever kind of crap he does. This woman's not wearing too much in the way of clothing. It's all right. Good look for her. FIT student, I guess. The Fashion Institute of Wearing No Clothing. I don't know Matt Morse, to tell you the truth. So that's basically it for right now. The lawfare lunatic is losing his mind. He's very desperate for me to withdraw this Rule 60b-4 motion. And that's just not going to happen. You know, he's going to have to file his Rule 11 sanctions thing, and he should stop emailing me. It's just harassment. Rule 11 doesn't allow you to harass me every day with warnings that you're gonna file sanctions. It just requires one proper warning, which you haven't even done yet, stupid. So do what you're gonna do. File away. I don't care. I think he's doing this because he realizes that the 60b-4, not just him, I think Ben Whitty's, Nina, Adam Sharp, all the people involved, Maxwell, Michigan, they realize that this 60b-4 motion is extremely potent. It's on point. And I've got a new sense of understanding of how to do this stuff. Counter lawfare has hit a stride. I got to thank the people who have been with me from the beginning. I would have never been able to do this without everybody who sponsors the show on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. People who sponsor on Crowdsource the Truth. Substack.com, and everybody who historically has sponsored on Odyssey.com. There's still people who are realizing that Odyssey has, and I get it, it's not the most obvious thing. It's difficult to convey the message, but Odyssey has gone over to a cryptocurrency system, and so if you still want to watch the sponsor exclusive content and you were sponsoring on Odyssey, thank you for that. You were getting the show for free for about 3 months, so thanks to all the people who have sent the one-time sponsorship payments to paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. But you got to get onto one of the other platforms or get yourself some AR cryptocurrency. You can also subscribe to me on X at JG_CSTT. Thanks to everybody who's doing that. Have a great night.